I'm going to tell you, buying tax defaulted property, there's risk involved. And the risk is you bring it on yourself when you overbid, because who are you going to sell it to? Think about that.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We are here with Ted Thomas, who is America's tax lien and tax deed authority. Ted, good to see you. We're going to be answering a lot of questions today that came in from a lot of your watchers who are on Google, Bing, other social media. We're talking about Michigan property tax sales today, Ted. So I got a bunch of questions here. Are you ready for this?
I'm all ready.
Let's go. First question. This comes from Zora. She was on Twitter, and she asked, what type of auction is Michigan? Tax lien certificate or tax deed state?
Okay, so I'm going to give you some insight into this, but I'll start out to answer the question. Michigan is a tax deed state, and that simply means that the legislature passed the law that if they don't pay the tax, the county can confiscate the property. They'll confiscate the property, and they do that by first placing a lien on it, then they levy on it, and then they sell it at auction. And the starting bid could be as low as 10 or 15 cents on the dollar. And when they sell that property, they'll sell it without a mortgage or deed of trust. Let me give you a little insight. I have been doing tax liens and deeds for over 30 years. And when I started, I bid in Michigan at tax lien auctions in Michigan, and Michigan paid up to 50% on a tax lien certificate. How about that?
Not bad. You have been doing this for a while, haven't you, Ted?
Yes, I have. A long time. And
we've got question number 2. This comes from Ashley. She was on YouTube. Ashley asked, around what month does Michigan auctions take place?
The Michigan auctions generally take place late in the summer, so you could probably think from July, August, September. But then when it gets real cold, around November, they've already finished. So that last, the third quarter of the year generally is when they have the auctions in Michigan.
Okay. And I know you have ways of helping people find out when that happens, and we're probably you're going to mention that a little bit later. But let's get to the question from Hassan from Instagram. Does Michigan have online auctions, or do I have to go in person to attend the auction?
Well, right now they're just doing in-person auctions, which I think is a big advantage because you can see what's going on in the room. And it gives you a chance to, get a feel for a real auction. But Michigan auctions are offline, and people like to go to those auctions. I love to go to the auction itself because it's not so sterile like a online auction. I'm not negative on the online auction, but it's a lot more fun at a real auction.
Although I got to tell you, when you're at that auction, don't you sort of get caught up in the activity, and you got to watch how much you bid?
This is kind of a problem for a lot of people because people are so driven at these auctions to make money. So the vernacular or what they hear about auctions is that, they're going to go in and they're going to spend $2,000 and they're going to get a $200,000 property. There's just this mindset going on that they're going to steal every property. Well, that really isn't the case. I mean, I have many people that are buying a $150,000 tax assessed value, and they might even spend $50,000 to get it. But let's say it was worth $150 and they buy it at $50. Well, they still got a lot of margin there. But there's a whole attitude about auctions where people think they're going to steal every single property, and some people way overbid at these auctions. So there's a lot of anticipation. So because there's so much anticipation, people want to be there, they're excited. And what they do is they say, oh, I'll just bid 5,000 more or 2,000 more. But there's someone else in the room thinking the same thing. And pretty quickly we get this challenge of all the bids keep going up and up, and people way overbid. So I used to jokingly say, wear a white shirt and write on your sleeve your maximum bid, and then don't go over that. The people that survive this business are the people that are investors. Well, let's talk about that just for a second. All right, so this is an alternative investment. If you're going to make money at this investment, you have to have a little bit of discipline, because if you look at a property and you fall in love with it, it's not like a woman. You fall in love with it, you can get married, you can live happily ever after. Well, with a property, what if there's something wrong with it? Or what if somebody else wants it? Or what if there's a lot of competitive bidding in the room or whatever? I mean, so now the pricing of that property keeps going up. Every time the profit price goes up, your profit goes down. So you have to have a certain amount of discipline if you got to buy this. So everything looks like, people read a book, everything is everything seems to work. They watch television and a program starts at this on the hour and it finishes 29 minutes later and it's all done. Everything always works out. I'm going to tell you, buying tax defaulted property, there's risk involved. And the risk is you bring it on yourself when you overbid, because who are you going to sell it to? Think about that.
Good advice, Ted. So our next question is from Lien. This is from YouTube. What kind of properties should I expect to see on the auction list this year in Michigan?
Wow, what are you going to see on the auction list? Well, the auction list can be any kind of property. So let's start out. You could have vacant raw land. You could have land that a farmer was developing and they were growing potatoes. You could have land where it was an orchard, for apples or something like that. You could have land that was developable, being developed. In other words, the developer was putting in the roads and they were building on it. You could find what everybody thinks of is single-family homes. Now, we're talking about Michigan today. Michigan has a lot, literally thousands of properties that are used and abused. So let's develop that just for a second. When you go to an auction, these are properties that haven't been taken care of. They're not country club properties in most cases. They're used and abused. People have run out of money. People have decided they don't want to take care of it. There's people that just hoard things. They keep all the newspapers in the house or whatever they do. And so these are not pristine, brand new properties with fresh paint on the walls and beautiful plants out front and nice circular driveways and whatever. These are bread and butter properties that people have basically, in many cases, I'll use the word abandoned. They might not have walked away from it, but they've abandoned it in terms of taking care of it. And so now they're used and abused. So you're going to find all of what I've mentioned in all various states of repair and disrepair. So it's a little bit of everything. And that's why the research is so important for people to figure out, is this a property that has value, that I can buy it at the right price and then be able to sell it relatively quickly at a right price? The whole game is buy with margin, or try to buy it from the tax collector 10 or 20 cents, 30 cents on the dollar, and sell it for 50 or 60 cents on the dollar to someone that wants to fix it up. You're just playing a game where you're trying to get a little bit of margin in this property where you can make some money. Most people don't buy these because this is the house they want to live in.
Well, Ted, I know you're really big on doing a lot of research on something, and it's funny because question number 5 comes from Santana on LinkedIn, and he asks, I want to invest in Michigan this year, but I live in Florida. Who can I hire to be my boots on the ground?
Well, hire as many people as you can, but I would start out with, I would find who the residential brokers and agents are in that particular county, and then if you can narrow it down to that particular town, that's even better. And you'd ask them to look at the property, to give you evaluations on it and things like that. All right, now those agents, I don't know that every agent is graded AAA or 110%. So there's going to be different levels of agents. So that might take you a while to interview different agents. Now, I will tell you this, don't promise that agent you're going to give them the sale of the property or her the sale of the property, but ask them, can you help me with this? And a lot of agents are very professional. And what they'll do is they'll say, well, sure, I can go out and look at it. I'll do a comparable analysis in the neighborhood. I'll take pictures for you. Matter of fact, I have a couple of people that work for me that know a lot about property. They have their own team of specialists they work with. So I have clients, now that you brought it up, I have clients, for example, Paul, who lives in Utah. I won't take too long to give you the answer on this, but he lives in Utah, and I think he's well over 20 properties that he's purchased since he graduated my training, which is 5 or 6 years ago. So he's probably doing 5 or 7 properties a year. He lives in Utah, and he's buying in Michigan. He's never been to Michigan. So he buys and sells, but he uses the community there he hires people from that community. Doesn't always buy in the same county. Michigan has 67 counties, so he's buying in all different counties, and so he has to research every property he buys in a different county.
Hey, Ted, I've got a follow-up question to that. So Michigan only does in-person auctions. So if somebody's out of state, can they also hire somebody to actually go to the auction for them?
You know, you probably can. I'm not aware of that, but you could probably have someone do a bid for you. I don't know what the rule on that is. It doesn't come into my brain right now, but you probably can do that. They allow that. You're probably going to have to give them, power of attorney and that kind of thing. I'm not so sure. I would think that's more of a legal question. Ask an attorney that.
Okay.
And then go to the county, go to the state statutes and see what the statutes say there. But the state statute will tell you that, and so will the county.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's go back to the questions from your watchers. This is number 6. This is from Gracie. She was on TikTok, and she asks, what type of payment method does Michigan accept? Can I use my credit cards to purchase a property?
Well, that's a surprise that someone would even ask that question. First of all, you need good money. Now, what's good money mean? All the state's going to say good money means to them that it's cash or cashier's checks like from the bank, or it's a wire transfer. In Michigan, in that case, Michigan's one of the 2 states that I can name that you can actually use a credit card. All right, now you need to plan on this ahead of time so you got enough limit on your credit card. But the point is Michigan and New York both allow credit cards to be used there. But the state statute and the auction rules are going to tell you exactly what kind of money you need. So you need to look at that because it can be different from county to county. One county will say, matter of fact, there will be counties in Michigan that will say to you, you can't use a credit card here. So it's not blanket that every county that you can use a credit card. There are counties in Michigan I know you can't use a credit card.
Question 7 comes from Sam. He was on LinkedIn, and he asked, is there a leftover list or second auction in Michigan?
Yes, there's going to be leftovers at all of these auctions. They just have different names for them. Depends upon what the county wants to call them. But if a property doesn't sell at the auction, more than likely the treasurer will put it up for sale at the next auction. And if it doesn't sell at that auction, they'll take action to take it off the default list. Keeping in mind, a default list means they're not collecting money. And they have to collect money. If they don't collect money, how are they going to pay the firefighters and the school teachers? So they're going to take it off that list and they'll put it on another list, which could be called a different name, but that could be a leftover property.
Okay. Down to our last question, Ted. Before I ask you, just want to remind the viewers, if you have a question for Ted, why don't you leave it in the comment section below? His team goes over it, and you may be in a future video we do. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I don't know, maybe even subscribe. Ted's got a lot of great information. So, last question, Ted. This comes from Peter. He was on Instagram, and he asked, what tips would you give a beginner attending their first auction in Michigan this year?
What tips? Well, do you want to take a half an hour? How long do we want to take? First tip I'd tell you to do is that every other week I do a 6-hour virtual workshop. Now, that 6-hour virtual workshop, I charge $47 for that. We cover a lot on that workshop about tax liens and tax defaulted property, and you get to see people that are actually doing it, and they explain their experience. All right, so other than that, what are the tips I'd give you? First tip would be start researching. If you live in Michigan, it's going to be easy. If you're not in Michigan, then you're going to have to find someone to start researching the property. But no matter what you do, don't go to an auction and bid without looking at the property, because that's one of the biggest mistakes people make. And then the second thing that you don't want to do at an auction is you don't want to buy anything until you know what you're going to be able to sell it for. In other words, what's your exit strategy? All right, now, if you don't know how to do research, you need to learn that. Why do you need to learn that? Well, what's going to be left on the property after the auction? Obviously, the ground is still there. The structure is probably still there. But are there any other liens or encumbrances? For example, a municipal lien or federal lien. Now, most auction buyers know that the Michigan auction will wipe out the deed of trust or a mortgage on the property. So you're not buying in with a loan on it, but there could be other liens and encumbrances on it. So there's a lot of work that's done in preparation of going to the auction. if you're a professional buyer, you really know how to do research.
Well, Ted, in terms of when those auctions are going to be happening, maybe you want to tell the folks about the calendar you have that'll help them get their schedule together?
Okay. All right, so the big challenge is, how do you know how many auctions they're going to take place and when? All right, so the United States has over 3,000 counties that sell tax defaulted property. If you want to buy those, how are you going to know which county to go to? So what I did is we created an interactive map and auction calendar. It's electronic, so right below me, you'll be able to go to that, and you can move your cursor around, and you'll see these white circles on that map. And what that means is that that's where they're going to have an auction, and that map changes every single day because it tells people where the auction is going to take place, and then you'll know how many properties are going to be at that auction, and you'll know the starting bid, and in other words, there's a lot of information there. And you can do all that electronically just by going to that particular interactive map, which is right below me.
It's right below Ted. It's in the description column. Check it out, folks. Take Ted up on his offer and join us again next time.